And I think we're live. What is up, everyone? Welcome into the Wizard Factory live show. Today is July 1st of 2023, and we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and the One Great Work Network. Today we're talking about the Narcissist Toolkit. So, very popular subject. I think people will get a lot of value from this, kind of getting into the standard tools and methods narcissists use to control their victims, and then looking at some sort of parallels that we see in certain institutions, belief systems, things like that. As usual, we're joined by Mr. Rodney Goodwin to give us some astrological weather reports. And this is going to be the last show for a while. As many of you know, I'm getting ready to go back on the road. So I think this will be a great episode to kind of end things for a while. And I will be back within a few weeks, hopefully. We'll just have to see how that goes. So big show. I'm excited for it. If you're excited, please hit up the like button below and let's get into it. All right. Got the comments are popping off. Love to see that. Welcome, everyone. Much love to you all. Let me know how you're doing today. One of the most common mind viruses plaguing humanity in our time. Absolutely. Misty, what's up? Josh, great to see you. Gray and rainy. All right. It's hot as balls here in Texas, I'll tell you that much. Warm, sunny Colorado. Awesome. Good deal. Well, welcome in, everyone. My name is Logan Hart, and this is the Wizard Factory. This channel is all about giving you the spiritual tools and mindsets to live a more free and empowered life. If you're new, welcome to our growing community of those seeking self-improvement, spiritual evolution, and a tribal family. If this is your path, please remember the tribe, subscribe down below, and as for the like button, you guys know what to do.
Smash, smash, smash. Yeah.
Awesome. So as I said, last show for a while, going to be taking the show on the road. I actually plan on making a little blog type video or something to show you guys my setup once I get everything set up in the truck. So I think that'll be really cool and exciting. But I'm very excited to start this new chapter in life. Going to be pretty big lifestyle shift, that's for sure. But I've always been very adaptable, and I love a good adventure. So let's get it. So, keep in mind there will be a break, but I've got lots of content planned out. Several podcast episodes are going to be dropping. I've got several pre-recorded interviews that I've done that I'll be posting here as well. So lots of good stuff to keep you guys happy in the meantime. Yeah, that'd be cool. I will be generally up in the northeastern area, not so much in the west, unfortunately, but just because I love the scenery out there. But mostly from like Illinois to Pennsylvania, and then down some in the southern states as well, Georgia, Virginia, things like that. So yeah, it's going to be great. I have been on the road before. I've just been off the road for about 4 years now. So got this good job opportunity, and going to be paying really well. So definitely a good, stepping stone to get me closer to my goals, which is, of course, financial and time freedom, so that I can really spend more time doing what I love, things like working on the channel, making more content, and expressing my other aspects as well, such as my music, which unfortunately doesn't get enough get enough time and attention as I would like. So looking forward to that. and let's get into it. So, first, I would like to start with a little news snippet. So, this is the Under the Macroscope. So this is not so much a a current event or something like this. Isn't anything new, but I thought it was a well written article, so I thought it would be good to share. And I do think that it sort of dovetails nicely into the topic we're going to be getting into today. So it's called "How America Has Become a Military Dictatorship Disguised as a Democracy." The government is goose stepping all over our freedoms. Um, America's founders did not want a military government ruled by force, and most Americans seem relatively untroubled by this state of martial law. We have seen the militarization of the police in particular, which, it's one thing to have a powerful military, even that is questionable, but to have the police have become essentially the standing army that the founding fathers talked about. And incredibly, when President Biden bragged about how the average citizen doesn't stand a chance against the government's massive arsenal of militarized firepower, it barely caused a ripple because people are this desensitized, right? We've grown accustomed to just this is where we're at now, and I want to kind of liken a lot of this. Again, this is the theme of today's show, right? The narcissist, but it's not just about the narcissist. It's about the codependent relationships that he forms, or he or she forms with their victims. So, the American people in this case being the victims. And of course, this doesn't just apply to America. I mean, this is generally more of a global phenomenon, but it has definitely become prevalent here in America. And being as that's where I live, I can attest for that with firsthand experience. But drawing this parallel here, you know, think of like the battered wife, for example. She feels powerless to leave, right? Well, he's too powerful. I can't do anything about it, and kind of just getting like complacent in the state of just helplessness, basically, of like, this control system, them having throat on your their boot on your throat, essentially, uh, figuratively and sometimes literally. And let's just kind of carry this theme going forward. So, for years, the government has been warning against the dangers of domestic terrorism, erecting surveillance systems to monitor its own citizens, creating classification systems to label any viewpoints that challenge the status quo as extremist, and training law enforcement agencies to equate anyone possessing anti government views as a domestic terrorist. This is blatant gaslighting right here. You know, labeling, right? Saying, "Oh, that's just extreme. Oh, you want freedom? That's extreme. What's wrong with you?" That's a threat. That's a threat to this family, to everything that we have. Everything that I've given you. That's a spit in my face. That's the kind of gaslighting. There's absolutely no difference between those two scenarios, and that's kind of the theme that I want to highlight here. Is that's why I want to do this show, is to show you that there are just these certain tactics and behaviors that once you learn what they are, you see them all the time, whether they're in your interpersonal relationships or being done to you at a systemic level. So, subsequent reports by the Department of Homeland Security to identify, monitor, and label right-wing and left-wing activists and military veterans as extremists have manifested into full-fledged pre-crime surveillance programs. Almost a decade later, after locking down the nation and spending billions to fight terrorism, the DHS concluded that the greater threat is not ISIS, but domestic right-wing extremism. So I also find it very interesting that they've kind of compartmentalized this idea of if you're pro-freedom, then you're automatically right-wing, right? This is all part of their dialectic agenda. It has nothing to do with actual politics because freedom is antithetical to politics, to government. But yet they have to corral ideas and people into these dialectics because it keeps your mind polarized, and then you're confused as to who the real enemy is. So they're demonizing, if you love the state, if you love uh, the control system, which many people do, sadly, then they see people who actually don't think inside of the system in the parameters of their boxes as a threat to their way of life, to their trauma bond with the violent and psychopathic system. And so already discontent is growing. According to a USA Today Suffolk University poll, 7 out of 10 Americans believe that American democracy is imperiled. Americans are worried about the state of their country, afraid of an increasingly violent and oppressive federal government, and tired of being treated like suspects and criminals. That last part is very important. This is more of that gaslighting where they're the psychopath, they're the abuser, but they'll treat you like you're the threat. Like they have to be suspicious of you at all times. And then they'll tell you, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, well, what do you have to be afraid of? That's the kind of gaslighting that we're talking about. What we'll see more of before long is a growing dissatisfaction with the government and its heavy-handed tactics by people who are tired of being used and abused and are ready to say enough is enough. This is not what happens when a parasitical government muzzles the citizenry, fences them in, herds them, brands them, whips them into submission, forces them to ante up the sweat of their brows while giving them little in return, and then provides them with little or no outlet for voicing their discontent. And then it just wraps up by kind of saying there's something being concocted in the dens of power far beyond the public eye, and it doesn't bode well for the future of this country. Anytime you have an entire nation so mesmerized by political theater and public spectacle that they're oblivious to all else, you better be aware. Anytime you have a government that operates in shadows, speaks in a language of force, and rules by fiat, you better beware. And anytime you have a government so far removed from its people as to ensure that they are never seen, heard, or heeded by those elected to represent them, you'd better beware. There's still some kind of fallacies even built into this. Everything the government does is speaking in a language of force, right? There is no voluntary and consensual conduct that the government does because everything they do is backed by force. It's like a polite bank robber that tells you kindly, please do this or that. And maybe you think that's a great idea, so you don't actually see the violence happening. But when there's coercion, that is violence, whether there's bloodshed or not, and that's very important. But again, not exactly a current event. This is something that's been unfolding for, I mean, decades, more extremely, but really since the inception of this country, there's been very suspicious red flags even right from the get-go. So, I mean, I don't personally really buy into the idea that we used to be founded in, I mean, there was an ethos of freedom, but yet the even going from the Declaration of Independence to the Constitution, there was a very big jump in actual principles and morality when it comes to what government actually is and does. So, yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about that article. What do you think about some of my thoughts that I shared? And we'll move on to some quick housekeeping. Just a few little announcements and such. First of all, do check out Wizard Factory on the other platforms, um, social media and such. I'm pretty active there, posting almost daily content. I don't want to oversaturate, the algorithm or anything, but definitely a lot more kind of easy to digest daily kind of little doses of things. I put some effort into that, short videos, things like that, and the One Great Work Network, of course, we're live there right now. Over 70 content creators, really amazing stuff. Highly recommend checking this out. Totally free platform, and lots of very talented people there, teaching truth in their own unique and individual kind of way. If you have not yet checked out the initiation package, I highly recommend doing that. And I'll play this video now for that. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I just want to take a quick moment to offer you a special gift. It's the free initiation package download. This is a free download package that includes the Toolbox mini course. I created this package to equip you with all of the essential tools you need for any type of energetic or magical practice for anyone serious about their spiritual development. It's comprised of 3 parts: the circle, the breath, and the voice, where you'll learn how to cast the Circle of the Magi, various breathwork techniques, including a powerful guided breathwork meditation, rune galler, and more. You'll also get access to the Inner Sanctum, our private Facebook group and Discord server, as well as some Wizard Factory wallpapers for desktop and mobile, all for free. And for those who've already seen this course, I'm happy to announce that this is a brand new remake with better production and even more information. You can find the link to get yours in the description below. So check it out and let's get back to the content. Yeah. So that is the initiation package. The link is right here if you'd like to just scan the QR code there. And if you're new to the channel or you just want to have a good way to explore more of the content here, I do recommend the playlist called Laying the Foundation. That is, you can find that on the channel homepage in a playlist. Just scroll down and you'll find it. That's all my essential videos, essentially the most important kind of foundational knowledge. So do check that out. And of course, my presentation from Funnel was very well received. By the way, Funnel was awesome. Great job to everyone put that together. It was absolutely incredible. All the speakers were really amazing and lots of good information, and the whole thing was just very, very well done. So bravo to Will and Chris and Leslie and everyone else that really worked their butts off to pull that off. But my presentation called, sorry, I'm pull up the slide here. Trivium Hacking, Mind Control and How It Perpetuates the Slave System, was a huge success, very well received. I did have a shortened version for the conference. It was about an hour and 20 minutes. The full version, that's nearly 4 hours, is now available on this channel. So I highly, highly, highly recommend checking that out. Absolutely vital information. So that's all I have for the housekeeping today. So I guess let's go ahead and bring Rodney on. Hey, hey,
Man,
what's up, brother?
what's up, my man?
How you doing?
You've been busy.
Very busy, insanely
Yeah,
busy.
that's good, man. We need to stay busy, getting keep pounding the content out. Keep focused, keep balanced, keep our mind right. We got challenges. Everybody's got them. We've got these things, this resistance that we come up against at times, especially when planetary aspects are in retrograde. And we're going to come up against that resistance. But again, I just put out a short or a reel on that about, damn, that resistance is our opportunity for growth, right? That without that resistance, how are we going to grow? And so we need that resistance in context to the planetary aspects to bring us into a space where we're climbing the mountain of Capricorn, which is what I want to talk about today, because we're having a Capricorn, full moon on July 3rd. So, and it's going to be a supermoon. What's a supermoon? That means that in the ecliptic or in the orbit, the moon is very, very close to the Earth at that point. So it just looks bigger, it's huger because it's closer. And that creates what I call seismic activity. So not only on the physical level in context to the magnetism of just think about what the moon does. I mean, the body of water that it moves, the amount of water that it moves on this planet, all the water that moves back and forth is in context to those tides is all moon driven in context to magnetics. So when you're dealing with the moon, you're dealing with very much, any very high level emotional aspect and with your mind and your emotions. That's why we call it the navigator, or how to navigate your moon. It's your GPS, right? So when we're dealing with a super moon, it's intensified and it becomes seismic, not only in the physical world that we could see some seismic activity pop up, but also within you, because we are made of water as well, and so that water then becomes very much, the frequency becomes, on a vibratory level, becomes very intense. Now Capricorn, what are we dealing with there? The 10-4 axis. So we're, with the sun being in Cancer, we're looking internally right now. This light is shining internally to our private aspect, and with the Capricorn aspect, that's public. So how are we linking up our private and public mindset on that 10-4 axis and bringing it into alignment? So when we do this, we have to realize that these emotions are going to surface big time over the next July 3rd, and then that's going to turn into into a new moon as it comes and cycles back in, new moon in Cancer, which is conjunct the sun. And so we're going to be in a very high level emotional trend right now. And so these emotions, in context to our emotional intelligence and our emotional body, are going to surface on a very deep level because of the supermoon and how close the moon is to the Earth right now. And so here's what we're dealing with: Capricorn, foundations, structures, and this is trine to Jupiter. So I want to bring up a chart because I want to show you what's going on here really quick.
All right.
Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you see, here's your moon, here's moon. Okay. And moon is literally trining. This is a trine. So this green line that's running all the way up to Jupiter here is trining to Jupiter and Taurus. So you've got this, nice, beautiful super moon happening, which is a moon is basically opposing the sun and energy. So when we have moon and sun that are in opposition, it creates the full moon because the sun's shining fully upon the moon. And when the sun makes its trek all the way back, right, through the gate, it's going to conjunct sun, and that's what's called a new moon. So when we have this aspect going on, especially in Capricorn, we have to look at the foundations and structures of our lives. And that's what's being lit up right now. And it's being lit up from the sun. When you're working with sun and moon on the internal level or our private level, where the sun is shining within us, we have to look at, like you're saying, like this show's about, where are where is our emotional intelligence lying? Am I still being loosed out in context to the narcissistic mind virus here on my internal level and my internal dialogue and what's shining within me? And then how is that manifesting to my public life? See, which is what the moon in Capricorn is all about. And when that happens and it's trying to Jupiter with that powerful energy, what's being expanded here is you have to take a look at where you're still being lied to in context to belief systems. See, because truth is not a belief system. Truth is truth. It doesn't have a belief system. It stands alone in context to the objective morality of truth and what it actually is and how it runs through the ethers and the cosmic structures. So when we have a belief system of something which runs to the religious aspect, we have to look at how we're still lying to ourselves in context to how we're navigating the truth. Does that make sense, man?
Yeah.
So this is what's being challenged with Jupiter, because Jupiter represents religion or belief systems, right? And so it's the expansion with this trine energy to the moon that's going to challenge our victim mentality. Are we still playing the victim? Where are we still having victim tendencies in our lives in context to our public image? You know, how am I still comparing myself to other people in context to my content or what I'm putting out or what I do in my work or my public life? Am I still playing the victim to certain things and certain aspects, you know, that are still control issues within my life, you know, not recognizing what I can and cannot control and still being loosed out to the things that I cannot control, thinking that I can control them. And those are the illusionary aspects of Neptune, which we're going to get into here in a minute. But this is going to bring some really intense light on, I'm going to go ahead and stop the share really quick if I remember how to do that.
I got you.
Okay, yeah, I need to go back to the regular. There it is. Boom. Okay, there we go. So with this aspect that's going on, there's still things in our lives that we think that we can control that are outside of our control. And then what does that do? We get pulled into that. We get loosed out there and pulled into that in context to our narcissistic mindset. Like, we have the power to control someone else or someone else's, you know, idea of how they should be, how they should wield their consciousness and how they should be towards me or I towards them. And we get into this mind fuck where we think that we can control everything outside of ourselves. And that's what this new moon, or excuse me, full moon is telling us, you know, on a public level and with relationships and in the workplace, wherever you're at. You have to come to the realization that the only thing that you can control is your navigation to your own pathwork and your own life. And when you come to that idea and it becomes a realization and the veil gets lifted, the mind gets illuminated in context to the full moon here, then you have to allow that illumination to go deep and realize where I'm still erring, where I'm still not allowing truth to integrate into my life. And so that's what a lot of this new moon, or excuse me, full moon is all about. And it's bringing that to light, because the other thing that's going on here, then I'll let you comment. The other thing that's going on here is we have Pluto at 29 degrees Capricorn, and we have the moon at 11 degrees Capricorn. The midpoint of those degrees is 20 degrees, where we had the Pluto-Saturn conjunction of 2020, January of 2020, when all of this spell cast got rolled out and got kicked out. So we're revisiting the midpoint here in context to that spell cast, you know, and you know how everything got, you know, really just, you know, dropped upon the whole planet to all the needlecraft and everything that happened to all the bullshit, right? That was a huge level narcissistic mind fuck to the whole planet. You got to do this and you got to do that, and we're locking you down, and you better comply. And just a real, power grab, so to speak, to the mind of the collective.
Mm-hmm.
So this particular full moon is going to bring light to that aspect, to see where we, because everybody was affected by it, you, me, everyone, where we'll still have connection with that, and where we still need to release things. Because I don't care how much of a high level magician you think you are, and how powerful you think you are, you were affected by that. All of us were. So we're still dealing with that lockdown mentality in context to that spell cast. And so this particular supermoon is going to bring light in context to where the Plutonian energy is setting. And that midpoint, it's actually going to bring the light back in, so we can really then purge the rest of this crap, man, that's going on. Because that new moon in Capricorn is all about that emotional intelligence, because that's that 10-4 axis. So we got the sun setting in Cancer. So that is the emotional intelligence to your public life. And so that's what we're dealing with this supermoon right now, man.
Yeah. And I've been seeing that in the ethos as well. Just kind of, I've been seeing a lot of posts about this. People are purging their friends list. They're self-reflecting a lot. They're like,
Yep.
here's my new boundary. No more am I going to accept, tolerate this kind of treatment and stuff like. So I love seeing, you can observe, these things playing out, even though they're bigger systems, bigger ripple effects of, in context to the cosmos and everything. People are playing that out on the micro level, on the
Yes.
individual personal level.
Yes. Right.
And you know what you were saying about the mass mind control, the narcissistic system, especially with all the events of the last 3 years. It's pushing people in two different directions. This is the thing that I've been
It
seeing
absolutely
happen
is.
for a long
It
time,
absolutely
for a
is.
very long time. Some people are getting pushed further into total enthrallment and just loss of personhood and just deep, deep mind control. But it's also waking people up as
Yes.
things get worse and worse. It's pushing them in almost into their sovereignty.
Yes.
And this is kind of what we were talking about with that article earlier of
Right.
like, the more they do this, there's people that'll like love the system even more, and they'll go along with anything that it says, and they'll cheer them, the psychopaths, on as they go. But the more people are getting sick and tired of it, they're lumping them into this, right wing extremist kind of label, slapping a label on it, calling them extremist and terrorists and things like that,
Yes.
because they know that's inevitable. That's going to be natural blowback from what they're doing. So, I mean, in general, again, the purpose of this particular episode is to shed light on these behaviors so that it's even more clear and obvious when you see these things playing out. Which way you go is on you, but awareness brings choice. And sometimes once you see a new perspective, you can't unsee it. And then you'll start recognizing that, you'll start seeing it everywhere, and you'll be like, that's what that is. Fuck that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right. And so once you recognize it and you see it, for what it is, you have occulted, you've deocculted it. See,
Right.
you've
Right.
literally apocalypto, you've unveiled it
The
within
the
your
narcissist
consciousness.
the narcissist toolkit then becomes your toolkit, because then you can use that awareness in counter to what they are doing, because most of these mind control techniques, 90% of their effectiveness, it happens from your unawareness of it. once you become aware, it, like you said, Rodney, it still does have some effect. There's absolute,
Yes.
we're
Oh,
human
yes.
beings. We're
Absolutely.
human beings. Our psychology works a certain way. There's no way to completely insulate yourself from the effects of this, toxic bullshit. But awareness is a game changer. It really does shift the power back in your favor, and gives you a mental defense against this, this control system.
That's why you have to go within, because you can't create the correct vibrational correspondence if you don't change your internal aggregate. And if you don't do that, and you're not doing that path work, you're going to be pulled into the circus arena. The three-ring circus, man. How I'm going to bring out the pink elephant. I mean,
Right.
that's just the nature of the game here. So the going internal and looking at the mirror of your own life then becomes imperative to this 10-4 axis that we're dealing with here, because the Cancer sun is all about shining that light into your private internal aggregate, and then being able to change your vibrational correspondence by the awareness that you're picking up through the transit. See? And so when we're looking at this particular aspect to Capricorn is also about building and manifestation. It is the earth magician. It is the 10th gate. So if you are hijacked on an internal level in context to your emotional intelligence, right, and what you're broadcasting on the sub levels, then what's happening? Your templating, your spindle, your energy system is hijacked to the system itself and to the narcissist. Government.
Yeah.
See? And until you become your own government, you're governing your own mind within, by doing the internal work, then no longer do you need the government outside of yourself as a crutch, or as whatever that you're using it for in context to making you feel good, or the government's got my back, or the government has my best interest, when in fact that is an absolute lie. See? And until you have that awareness within yourself by doing the internal work, you're going to be loosed out to the system. You're going to be a matrix baby, and you're going to make matrix babies because your subconscious aspect is going to be, imprinted on your children. So it's got to stop with you. You
Right.
have to be the individual that makes that happen and break the spell cast that's been going on for aeons here on this planet.
Absolutely.
It's reptilian in nature, the energy in context to the reptilian brain and the monkey
Yes.
brain. When you can't seem to focus on anything for any period of time because you're so polarized to the Gemini aspect. And so you're back and forth, being pulled on the pendulum swing, in context of the law of rhythm. And this is how that works. And until you find rest and balance, you are not going to have awareness, because the gates of wisdom won't be open to you. And that's why government is always throwing the psyops. They're always throwing out the false flags. They're always, pushing the boundaries. And to your point, Logan, when that darkness, when that shadow aspect becomes so great in the world, right, in context to what's going on outside of us, right, and they keep pushing it further and further and further, the light, the truth has to come up to meet that and transcend that. See? And that's where we're at right now. We're at that point where the true light, the true warriors, that those who are true in their heart core have that warrior heart, are rising up to the occasion now, because we're seeing this shadow, this deep, dark shadow aspect trying to come and overpower the world right now, with the duress of war and the collapse of, you see all these people coming out about the collapse of the economy, and they're trying to move this into a very much dark timeline. And we have to stand our ground as truth people who are operating in truth and principle, and rise to the occasion. And funnel's a great aspect to that. I mean, rising to the occasion and presenting things into the ethers that are going to make a difference, that can change a person's life. And so we're setting in this energy right now, where to me personally, the 10-4 axis is one of the most important axes on the wheel. And when we're dealing with this particular energy, you're dealing not only with private and public, but you're dealing with the actual world axis, which when we talk about the Grand Cross. So anytime we do, we have solstice and equinoxes, that's the Grand Cross. In context to the 0 point, we're dealing with Capricorn, Cancer, Libra, and Aries. So that is the Grand Cross. So that has a world effect or a collective effect when we're dealing with those energies. So I just wanted to point that out because they're very important axis. The 1-7 axis, in which we're coming into with the North nodes here on July 17th, as the North node moves into Aries and then into Libra on the South node. Okay, so we're having a very important T square to Pluto at 29 degrees with that nodal axis that's coming up. And we have to really look at our values, our belief systems, where we're still erring in our consciousness, where we're still not having a true sense of cosmic responsibility. Because, dude, this is a cosmic responsibility that we have here. Not just the Earth only. We're dealing with the whole universe, the whole cosmos. It's a cosmic responsibility that we have to wield the truth within ourselves.
Amen.
So that's basically the energies that are happening right now, man. Kind of what's going on with everything.
Yeah. Great stuff, man. Love how it always seems to align to the topics every time, and we don't even coordinate between,
I know, right? I mean, what does Capricorn represent? It's the devil card of the tarot, man. It's the male and female chained under the Baphomet field on,
Right.
context of the inversions, man. When we're looking at it,
Right.
So when we're looking at the devil card, how do you get unchained from that? How it's slavery, man. How do you get unchained from that slavery? By getting illumination to the truth,
Right.
And kudos to everyone that's putting out, content with this, because it has to happen, man. We got to keep getting the message out. So
awesome. All right. Go ahead and let people know where they can find you, but I'm going to have you sitting in for this conversation as well once we get
hardcoreproductions.com services page. You can check that out. You can actually book a session on Hardcore Productions on my Facebook page. You can get a hold of me on the link tree in the comments below. That basically has all my links, and then you can hit me up on Messenger if you're on Facebook, Rodney Goodwin. And then I also have a hardcoreproductions9@gmail.com. You can get a hold of me there as well. So I've been staying relatively busy, which is good. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the truth will set you free. Yeah, that's right, man.
Yep.
The truth will set you free. Set you free from the fucking slave.
Right. Ignorance is the chains.
The willful ignorance. I was laying in my bed last night, man, and this came to me. How many people are selling their soul out to willful ignorance on this planet, man?
Right.
I mean, it's mind-blowing.
Well, yeah, they've made ignorance into a false virtue. So they're therefore proud of it. They see it as a virtue, so they will literally brag about how ignorant they are.
Right, exactly. And they make it like it's some kind of great thing. I was watching a video the other day of it was a trans parade. It just popped up. It's a trans parade. I mean, it was gross, man. And they were out there with all their drag and bullshit, right? Literally like sexually exposed, dude. I mean, like publicly, And they were playing this music and they were all chanting, "We're coming for your children."
I've heard of that. I haven't seen it myself, but Will Keller was telling me about that, and I was like, wow. I mean, years ago they were in denial of like, oh, no one's coming for your kids. These people just want to live their life happy
Right,
and free or
right, yeah.
whatever. And now it's like,
Just
no,
let them be.
they're literally from their own mouth saying this. It's like you can't deny it anymore.
Yeah, it's the damn parasite, man. You
I
know?
liken it unto, so when we talk about gun control, and what do they always kind of try to gaslight you a little bit. They're like,
Yep.
no one's trying to take your guns away. Calm down. Like you're overreacting. And it's like,
Mhm.
we're just talking about, these assault weapons and this kind of thing, right? It's the same sort of thing. It's like, no one's coming for your kids. Calm down. It's like, no, now they're literally saying that, very interesting. Matter of fact, I'd like to take this opportunity to kind of poll the audience.
Yeah.
So I'm working on my next presentation already. No rest for the weary, right? The Seed 5 conference is in September. So, 3 months away. I need to start working on it now. And I'm honestly really torn. So I've been working on something already for a couple of months, just kind of on the side a little bit, which is about basically dogmatic thinking. It's called Breaking Beyond Boxes, and it's covering the holistic aspects of mind, body, spirit, and the boxes that are in place for each of those, and kind of giving you the alternative to all of those. Which I don't want to give any spoilers away. I'm going to make this a presentation regardless. What I'm torn between is, do I've been really feeling called to make a presentation about this transgender
Yeah.
agenda.
It's fun,
And,
man.
you know, so my question is to the audience, do you think that I should stick with the original plan, Breaking Beyond Boxes, and do that? And then I'm going to make them both, is my point. I would do the other one independently and just release it on the channel whenever it's done. But I'm just sort of feeling like this sense of urgency. I guess because it was just Pride Month and there's just been so much like
Yeah.
in your face with it,
Yeah.
that I'm feeling that sense of urgency to put that out sooner. So should I do that, or should I pivot towards actually doing a presentation on the transgender agenda? Let me
Right.
know in the comments which one you think. But I'll kind of let that run. And really quick, let's look at the post of the week. So again, it's kind of funny this came up earlier. You were talking about belief systems, right?
Yes.
And I posted this yesterday. Natural law is not the truth, it is truth itself. You see, this idea of so and so being the truth, Jesus is the truth, the Bible's the truth,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
It
Right.
has this very like religious connotation to it, like a gatekeeper almost, right? Because none shall reach heaven but through me, or the kingdom of heaven but through me, that kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
Like as an intermediary, like that's the way to truth, is through this dogmatic belief system, whatever that may be. I'm not
Yeah.
just picking on Christianity, but
It's a
just looking at this kind of idea in general.
Belay system, right?
Natural law is
Yeah.
truth itself. It is not a system, it is not a belief. It
Yep.
is direct interface with reality.
Yep.
And that's how you know it's legit.
That's right.
It doesn't ask anything of you. It doesn't care whether you believe it or not. It is only up to you, through as a conscious being, to recognize that anything other than acknowledging and living under natural law is insanity. And it's
Exactly.
only going to hurt you by ignoring that. And it's self-evident, right? It speaks for itself. It's
That's right.
discoverable. It's happening everywhere. And again, I find it so interesting, the kind of stuff people post. Look how simple this post is, right? It's so simple,
It's black
but
and white, man.
the kind of stuff people say
It's great.
in response to a post like this, it's always quite mind blowing. Even people that come in and they're like, "Whose truth?" What do you mean, whose truth? Like, it really highlights how brainwashed people are to this solipsistic mindset,
Yes.
that, or like, the truth according to who, right? They always need this middleman, this intermediary. Like, what do you mean according to who? According to no one. The truth gives a fuck not about who says what or believes what or who's being the ambassador and teaching or
Yes.
whatever. It just is. It's up to you to discover it. And me simply pointing it out, it has nothing to do with me. I'm just the messenger. I'm just speaking words that's pointing to the truth that already is. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not trying to get you to believe anything. I'm just pointing this out. And then people are saying things like, well, what is truth? It's like, are you seriously a grown ass adult asking another adult what is truth? Like, is that even a real question? You know, I mean, what is the answer you're hoping for? If you don't even know if there's truth, who like what's the point of even asking a question? Because a question is an invitation for truth. So
Yes.
it just blows my mind. Like these kind of posts and that's kind of one of my specialties is truth. So I post about it a lot, and just the kind of stuff people say is just it's so wacky.
It's my truth, man.
Who said gravity's real? Yeah, I mean, yeah. Who needs to say gravity's real? Do we really need to, spell that out? What's keeping you like your feet or your butt on the floor at this time? Like let's see here. Would integrate and prelude with them, start with dogma and end with karma. Yeah. Stephanie, what are you referring to by it? You mean truth, or was this in relevance to something from earlier? That is from the mindset that truth is relative. Right, right. Truth is relative, of course, which is an objective statement
Yes.
stating truth, and it's a self-defeating argument by even saying something that asinine. It's like, well, maybe that's just your opinion,
Right.
I say truth is objective. You say truth is subjective. Who's right? Well, we're both just subjectively projecting truth. So we're both right at the same time, even though we believe completely conflicting things. The earth is also flat and a globe at the same time. Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Just my truth and your truth, and they can all just coexist together.
Yeah, I know, man. I'm actually a cat. I mean,
Well, you feel like a cat. You feel like a cat. So there you go, dude.
what the
Who am I
fuck?
to tell you otherwise, right? I'm not living in your body. I don't feel what you feel.
I know,
So
right?
who am I to say? I'm not a biologist either. So how can I determine that you're not a cat?
Right, right. Unbelievable.
Man. Oh, she was talking about the trans thing. Okay. Right. Yeah. And that was my feeling on it, is like feeling that sense of urgency. Like I need, not that I'm thinking that my presentation is going to change the world somehow, but it's just doing my part. That's all any of us can do, right? Is just use our own voice, our own platform.
Yes.
And, I do have a little bit of influence, and for what that's worth, if it helps one person, it's worth it to me. And because ultimately I do this to serve humanity and serve truth itself. So wherever I'm going to be most useful, that's what I want to do. So good to know. Anyone else, feel free to share your opinion on, which presentation do you think I should go with here? Earth identifies as flat. That's great. I
Yeah, I
love
thought
that.
that was funny. I saw that.
All truths are but half truths. All paradoxes must be reconciled. Yeah. And I find that interesting, because isn't that an absolute statement as well? Is
Yeah.
is all truths are but half truth just a half truth, or is it a whole truth? I would love to know your thoughts on that. I'm not discrediting it, and I do agree. There's I don't know. There's a lot of paradoxes when it comes to reality, and sometimes things can seem conflicting, but actually both be true. It just depends on the paradigm. Like, all things are one, right? All things are one. We're in a unified energetic field known as reality, whether it's a hologram or whatever you believe. That can be true. And at the same time, we exist in the world of forms. I'm me, you're you, even though those things might be an illusion, but they're real in context to this spiritual experience that we're having. And
Yeah.
like, why would we be here and choose to incarnate as individuated consciousnesses if that was just some lie to trick you and had no purpose to it? I think there's a reason that we're here as individuals that have an ego, and you know that's a lampshade, and that's a phone, and that's a Bud Light. You know what I mean? Like, these things are all teachers, because that's what the universe is as a university. So those things can both be true. You can recognize the oneness of all things and that we're born of the same, cosmic divine consciousness or whatever, but also recognize that will only take you so far in life. It's useful to discern things. That's the masculine, and it's like the masculine and feminine perspective. The feminine is everything's one, we're all just a big family, everything like that. The masculine says yes, but there's also children, and there's rapists, and there's just a full spectrum of different types of people with tendencies, and there's a usefulness to discerning. Yeah, we're individually connected. Exactly. Yeah, like the cells in your body. They're part of a greater system. They're also individuals. Anyway, fun little thought experiment. Don't want to
Yeah.
harp on that too much, but yeah, let me know what you think in the comments there.
Taking it to the law of polarity and balance in context to that, like and dislike are the same, but there's various degrees in between,
Sure.
and so when we're dealing with polarities, right, in context to that, that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing through our five senses. We're seeing the separation that's going on between the two and all the variables in between. But the key to life, again, like I always say, is finding the balance in between the polarity. This is where the gates of wisdom open up.
Right.
And so you can't get pulled into all of this, charade or illusion or whatever you want to call it, in context of the collective mind and what's being manifested onto the reality field to what's actually controlling the reality field. You have to become an arbiter to your own reality field, and then once you have transformed that, you become a powerful person to change the collective reality field outside of yourself. So it's a process with your path work.
Yeah.
When you're working with these energies,
And that's part of your journey to
it is.
level up your consciousness, is to
Exactly.
get better at discerning, have a
That's right.
higher degree of awareness.
That is
And
the
yeah,
hero's
that's
journey.
interesting,
Yeah.
because even something like morality, which we talk about a lot, there is an objective black and white, good and evil. There is such a thing. But
Yes.
even with that, you can see, there's always like the other side of the coin, basically. So, someone who's a rapist and a child molester, um, that is objectively wrong, and
Yes.
they're
Absolutely.
they're like a monster of a human being. At the same time, they're still a human being. They had their own traumas, right? Imagine that person as a little child getting violated in some way.
Right.
If you have any level of, you know, uh, compassion, you might feel that a little bit empathetic, even though that person turned out to be a really bad person and caused a lot of pain. There's that little element of humanity still there. I
Well,
think that's important to be able to see. You can have both at the same time. They don't have to cancel each other out.
Well, context to that, that's how the ultimate evil rides in on someone to the trauma aspect.
Yeah,
This is where the woundedness is. And so that takes it to the narcissist, because what does the narcissist wants to do? He wants you to feel his or her pain.
that's right.
See?
So that's a great kind of segue into the show, as we're going to get into the
Yes.
main topic here, is that we're talking about narcissists, but you have to understand the mindset. How did they become to be, how and who they are? Most people are not primary psychopaths, meaning they weren't
Right.
born that way.
That's
They
right.
weren't born with some, brain dysfunction. It was created. It's a condition created of trauma because they were at one point a victim of another narcissist, incidentally. So we'll get into that real quick. I want to shout out to the patrons: Edos Hugh, Slope Oak, AJK Green, Theo Lux, Joshua Brown, the Hexproof Anarchist, and Stephen Purdy Zaralath. You guys are awesome. If you haven't yet, do check out the Patreon. Wizard tier is only $4.99 a month. Really helps out, just in your own way. It definitely helps and adds up, and you get these nice little perks. So check that out. The link is below as well. You can read through there and see. But at the end of the day, this right here, this tier particularly, is just basically to contribute to the cause, and that's very appreciated. So thank you to those 6 individuals who are of the tribe. Cool. So let's go ahead and jump in. So this is the Narcissist Toolkit, and I have slides today because I'm going to be using slides from my Trivium hacking presentation. This is a section from that which is all about the narcissist. So again, what is a narcissist? Let's start by defining the term. This is a word that gets thrown around a lot these days. Anyone I don't like is a narcissist, right? Which is very narcissistic behavior.
Yeah.
when people just throw this around and label anyone who disagrees with them or calls them out on their bullshit, and calls them a narcissist or whatever. What we're talking about here is a person who has a strong left brain imbalance, usually, as we discussed, due to some kind of trauma. And the brain hemispheres have different functions. I think I get into that in just a minute. So first of all, we're looking at the effects of trauma. So trauma can be defined as an experience or event that gives acute or cumulative distress to the nervous system and psyche. Trauma can manifest from an isolated event or a chronic experience compounded over time. That's what we have with systemic trauma. We're born into it. It's happening at a very low level, low grade, constant bombardment, and exposure. So trauma can be seen as a form of energetic or physical rape, an unwanted and harmful penetration of your boundaries, your personhood, and a violation of your sovereignty and autonomy. This disrupts, fractures, and distorts your sense of self. This is a trauma response. Your personhood is violated, and then it creates a fracture. And your ego will have a threefold reaction to it. First of all, a fracturing, disruption, and confusing of your identity, who you are or who you perceive yourself to be. So with that, you have a compensation of either an overinflation or a diminishment of your own perceived boundaries, sense of self, and self-worth. And that's the internal effect, where your boundaries have this overcompensation, one direction or the other, as well as a distorted or negative perception of reality. Or actually, you can have a overly positive perception of reality as a coping mechanism, where you
Right.
just put yourself in this like, you know, bubble and pretend like everything's just peachy because you don't want to look at the negative.
Right.
That's another aspect. So as you can see, it's all about polarity,
Yes.
and it pushes you into imbalance at the internal level, your boundaries, your sense of self and self-worth. So boundaries equates to control, right? You control what is within the boundaries of your domain, your kingdom. And so if your boundaries go way out here as a compensation of feeling like you have no control, when someone violates you, they're taking your control away.
Yes.
So then you counter that by pushing them way out here, and then you become a control freak. That's what we're talking about. A
Yep.
narcissist is someone in this modality. Their victims tend to be people in the other direction where their boundaries go way in. There is no me. There's that new age mindset, right? There's no me, there's no you. Um, right? Selflessness. We'll get more into those in just a minute, kind of covering the internal and external. But then you have sense of self. So you will trauma bond to identity constructs that give you a sense of completeness, right? So things like when you hear people, joking about someone with a big truck that's really loud or whatever, and they're like, "Sorry about your penis," like,
Yeah.
but
Right.
what is that actually saying?
Right.
That person is very possibly overcompensating them feeling small inside because something made them feel small, that they
Yeah.
have to get this external projection of this big loud truck that's like, rah, I'm a real man, rah, rah, rah. It's a compensation to that internal feeling, and then a projection of that. And then self-worth, that goes either way as well. Either, oh, I'm worthless, I'm a failure, I don't deserve anything good. If you want money or greedy, these kind of beliefs are all indicative of that. Or this almost grandiosity, this God complex, thinking you're just the greatest thing, you're God's gift to the world, you know, and this, ironically, sometimes these end up being self-fulfilling prophecies because people like Hitler or whatever
Yes.
probably had similar beliefs and then ended up actually kind of acting that out as
Right.
like this savior of humanity or whatever, but actually they're a narcissistic control freak.
Exactly.
So really interesting. I love getting into the psychology aspect. Very, very important. So again, trauma creates a state of imbalance and pushes a mind to be dominant to one side or the other.
Yes.
Right brain imbalance creates slave mentality. Left brain imbalance creates a master mentality. And again, that's what we're going to be talking about today with the narcissist, is a person in left brain dominance.
Yes.
So to explain that dynamic further that we talked about earlier, you have a traumatic or chronic abuse. This is going to push them in one of two directions. If the experiencer identifies with the victim, then being themselves, negative emotions turn inward. This is the feminine side, because feminine is receptive, it goes in. Masculine is projective, right? Penetrative, it goes out. So the feminine right brain, the right brain is the feminine side. Negative emotions turn inward. The experiencer becomes victim, and then is victimized by others and abuses themselves as well. So they become their own abuser and victimize themselves, as well as allowing, if not even inviting, abuse from other people. And
Yes.
this is validating that belief about themselves. If they believe that they're no good, they're worthless, they deserve to be punished, things like this, that's actually validating their own belief by inviting that kind of thing, because it's connecting, bringing about that experience that validates that belief. Then if the experiencer identifies with the abuser, the negative emotions turn outward, masculine. Experiencer becomes the abuser,
Yes.
and then will abuse others and themselves. And this works on a karmic level as well. When you harm and violate others, you're bringing harm onto yourself through karmic debt, and you're betraying yourself, your own personhood, your own honor, integrity, right? And this validates that belief as well. It either way, you have to be a person of self-loathing, and then by acting, like you're just a piece of crap, um, you're still validating that even by, hurting other people. If you were told as a child, you're no good, you're a bad kid, then they internalize that belief, then they will act in accordance with that. And then they're validating that belief of like, well, I'm just a bad person, right? This is who I am. And they will often tell you that. Moving on. So back to the internal aspect, the belief about self. These are the personality traits. We'll start with right brain. These are bringing about the toxic feminine traits. So interoceptive, meaning their awareness is biased towards internal. Hypersensitive, projects self-loathing inwardly. Like I said, they're submissive, supplicating, selfless, people pleaser, irrational, because they're very emotionally driven. Cares too much. You hear this a lot, oh, I care too much, it always gets me hurt. That's right brain and dominance. Not having healthy boundaries, not recognizing red flags. That's another big one too, right? I always see the good in people. These are right brain tendencies. Can't say no. Doormat, right? No boundaries. See, both have unhealthy boundaries. One is not having the healthy boundaries far up and out, like saying, like, this is where my line is, this is not okay, and having guilt around having boundaries and honoring their own needs, desires, etc. They're hyper focused on other people's needs, desires, and boundaries, right? So they feel guilt around theirs and are always worried that that's going to clash with other people's, and they're, walking on eggshells. They're highly empathetic, overly emotional, assumes everything is their fault, very apologetic. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Even for stuff that they shouldn't be apologizing for, feels worthless, unworthy, powerless, a failure, and they have victim identity or mindset, and as a martyr. So again, the martyr archetype, again, this is validating the belief. This always happens to me. I'm too nice. People just use and abuse me, right? They're playing to that victim mentality. They think, oh, why is this happening? But they don't realize that they're actually bringing that on themselves.
Yeah.
So the left brain dominant person, that's where the toxic masculine traits come out. Exteroceptive, dissociated, right? Totally numb, cut off, unfeeling sort of. Projects their self-loathing outwardly. That's where the abuse comes in, right? I feel terrible inside. I hate myself, so I'm going to push that on someone else. Take that out on someone else. Domineering, narcissistic, radically self-centered, lacks empathy, remorse, or guilt. Hyperlogical, of apathetic, void of care. And also, if you want to screenshot this slide, you'll see these correspond to each other. Each line is the dialectic of one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So hyperlogical, apathetic, void of care, right, versus cares too much. Doesn't respect no, right? One can't say no. The other doesn't respect your no. So again, the boundaries issue. Tyrannical, only concerned with their own needs, desires, boundaries. No respect for others. Insensitive, machine-like, detached. This is a big one with narcissists. Can never acknowledge or admit faults. Unapologetic. I see this a lot online when I'm interacting, comments and stuff like that. you can point out something, somebody's bad behavior, some logical fallacy they're making, any type of, just a simple thing that a mature person should be able to say, you know what, you're right. I'm being a little unreasonable. Or, you know what, you got me there. I was wrong about that. They will never, ever, ever do that. They will never acknowledge it, and
Right.
they will continue to project blame, try to turn it around on you, attack you, continue to abuse you. The only answer with these people really is just a hard boundary. Like, don't even allow them in your energy field, because they will just come in like a bull in a china shop and just wreak havoc, because they're projecting their internal state onto you. Grandiose ideas about themselves, delusions of grandeur, God complex, authoritarian, punisher, and savior mindset. So again, think of a police officer. They think they're the good guys. The world is full of criminals. They're the punisher. They need to exact justice through their domineering, mindset and false beliefs, and then they're being the savior, the hero.
Right.
That's not to say that someone can't be a hero. Now, savior, I don't like that word at all. But a hero is somebody that, potentially puts themselves in danger, or does the difficult thing, faces their fear because it's the right thing to do. That's how I would define a hero. That's perfectly great. But if you're doing it not to actually do the right thing, but to, like, either get a certain outcome, get some accolades, validate this view you have about yourself being like better than everyone or something like that, that's where it becomes problematic. And this is even like, your Trumps and people like this. They're going to go into politics to be the savior, right? To fix this mess, to drain the swamp, blah 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 blah. So those are the personality traits of the
Yep.
left and right. It's important to look at both sides, because we always point the finger at the narcissist and the abuser, and rightly so. They're the ones that are actually taking actions which are harmful. However, it's almost like an animalistic behavior. Can you really get that mad at a tiger for mauling you when you didn't even bring a gun? That kind of thing. I mean, that's just a crude example. But if you're totally defenseless and you're going up against
Right.
a dangerous person, there is some culpability falling on you as well. You need to have strong, healthy boundaries, a sense of your own self-worth to say, hey, I'm better than this. I do not tolerate this kind of treatment. So then we get to the external worldviews. And this, again, is very just kind of general. Not all of these things are going to be true about every case. These are just tendencies. But the left brain dominant person, well, actually, let's start with right brain, um, views things as determinism, right? Like everything's preordained, everything is fate, everything is, serendipity. That's why they fall into religious belief, because it's all about, oh, God's plan, right? You can't really, you can pray and hope that God changes his plan, but as far as you having any real power, you see that's an extension of your own belief in your power. If you believe you have no power, you have to give that out and say, well, if anything's going to happen, I have to beg the one with power, the God in the sky, to actually make some change. Magical thinking, right? Believing things because they feel true, or because you like the sound of them, right? Oh, my dead grandma's smiling down on me from heaven. I always think about the George Carlin thing where he talks about that. Really funny. But, and like, I understand it's a coping thing. The pain of death and loss is very difficult. So that can be a comforting thought, but there's no real reason to actually believe that that's true. It's just a nice thing that feels nice. And so they just believe it. That's magical thinking. Or the law of attraction, not the real one, but the new age bullshit one, where if you just believe something is true, you believe you're worthy, and you have your good positive feelings, then things are just going to fall right in your lap. That's magical thinking. That's not how the universe actually works. Religiosity, as I said, New Age, these are totally the paradigms of a right brain and balanced person. It's the toxic feminine side. There is no me, right? That's the solipsism New Age version. There is no me, there is no you. Namaste. Look how spiritual I am. Of course, you're not going to have healthy boundaries. You don't even know who you are or what you are or where you end and begin. That's very unhealthy. You need to have a healthy ego. Willing slave, right? Tread harder, daddy. This kind of mindset tends to be liberal because they're pandering to that archetype of government being a proxy father figure, and you're the toxic feminine figure. And that's why they're so submissive. They love big government because
Exactly.
they're that willing slave. And again, these last things are just kind of anecdotal. Maybe they're the type of person that sees racism everywhere, or like misogyny or this sort of thing is like they're identifying as the victim, and they'll see that everywhere. That's kind of like the Karen. Basically, Karen would be on this list. So left brain, you have nihilism, right? There's no meaning to anything. The universe is just this cold, calculated machine with no spirit. Scientism, right? Atheism, these are all viewpoints that generally go very hand in hand. If a person is one, they're usually multiple of those. There's no meaning to anything. This is all just one big lucky accident. The only meaning and purpose of life is that which we give it. You hear this a lot from this type of person. And the solipsism version is the satanic form. There is only me, right? There is no me. There is only me. These are both imbalanced perspectives. Again, authoritarian, tend to lean towards the conservative side of things because they like being more, potentially could be misogynistic or racist, right? Have negative views of women because it's that dominator mindset. Women are slaves. They should just be subjugated. That probably just got me banned on Facebook. I'm speaking metaphorically here, please. Or say like a white supremacist. There's a reason why these people kind of tend to be very hardcore, like they're right, like these like neoconservative, extremist kind of white supremacist people, because they have this superiority complex. We just talked about that. They think we're better, other people down here, because that gives them that feeling of self-importance, because it's a compensation for the diminishment that they felt when they were abused and victimized. So instead of just saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to heal, we're all equals, they got to go, no, I'm the master, you're the slave. They can't, they go too far. They miss the mark, right? So that's kind of the psychology of it. Now let's get into the actual toolkit. So a narcissist is a person who is, as we said, polarized into the left brain dominant mindset or master dominator mindset. They are predators who are obsessed with control. Boundaries out here, everything seems hostile, so their only modus operandi is to control everything, right? Again, these are the kind of people that become police and politicians and things like that, where they have this power vested in them to have way more control than like the average person should. Obsessed with control and identify with and take on the role of the abuser. Their behavior and tactics are virtually the same, whether they are an individual with a chokehold of control on a single person, such as their spouse, or a politician or dictator manipulating millions of people. They were once victimized themselves, but then became identified with their abuser. Narcissists often use a variety of tactics to manipulate and control their victims. It is extremely important for everyone to become very familiar with these, so it becomes easier to recognize them when they are directed at you, no matter by whom. Appreciate that. Let's see, checking the comments. These have degrees. I've seen people have both. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good thing to point out, that not everyone is going to be just left brain or just right brain. Sometimes people have very right brain tendencies, but then can also be very narcissistic. It's not always just one of the two. Again, I'm not trying to paint any kind of black and white. These are just generalities that are useful to look at. So the first one is gaslighting. This is probably the most popular. And gaslighting is a tactic in which the narcissist makes their victim grow to doubt their own reality, memory, rationality, and perceptions, which reinforces codependence because the victim will then look to their abuser for truth and stability. Gaslighting can take several forms, including pathological lying. The narcissist may lie constantly. Keep in mind, look at the government, for example. See which ones, if not all, that they do constantly, right? You can't be trusted with freedom. You're too dangerous. We tried that. It didn't work. Now I have to take your freedoms away because it's a parental figure, right? You can't make your own decisions, so you just vote for the suits in Washington, and we'll make those educated decisions because you're too stupid.
Right.
Pathological lying, of course, constantly lying, even about things that are easily verifiable in order to manipulate and control the victim. Blame shifting, a form of gaslighting. The narcissist may shift blame onto their victim for problems or conflicts in the relationship, even when the victim is not at fault. You're a terrorist because you believe in freedom, right?
Yeah.
That's some blame shifting big time right there. This can make the victim feel responsible and guilty and prevent them from asserting their needs and boundaries because they start to accept that, right? You know what? You're right. We can't be trusted with freedom. We need government. We need that control system in place, or else there would just be chaos. That's what the narcissist always tells, you think you could survive without me? Like, I made you. If you leave, you'll be on the streets in a week, and, this kind of stuff. Projection. Projection is a tactic in which the narcissist attributes their own negative qualities, thoughts, or behaviors to the victim. This can make the victim feel confused, guilty, and responsible for the narcissist's problems, and can also make it difficult for them to assert their own needs and boundaries. Again, the government is the ones doing all the criminal behavior. But if you do it, you're the problem, and like, oh, this is why we have to have laws, just so appalling, right? Invalidating. The narcissist may invalidate the victim's own thoughts, feelings, and experiences, making them feel unimportant, insignificant, unreasonable, or crazy. Oh, you want to do your own research? We can't have that. You've got to trust the experts, right? You can't possibly come to, just sift through the data and come to your own conclusions and self-diagnose and relying on your own immune system. What? That's crazy talk, right? Denial. The narcissist may deny that certain events occurred, creating confusion and making the victim doubt their own memory and insanity, right? How full is history of these kind of things?
Yes.
And that's nothing, or they'll just what was blatant abuse of power, they'll just chalk up to incompetence, or, oh, we didn't know any better, we did the best we could, mistakes were made and we own that, and let's just try to move on, right?
Yeah.
Instead of taking any actual responsibility. Rodney, do you have anything you want to comment so far? I know I'm kind of running through these.
Oh, no, you're just presenting, man. I'm just like taking it in.
Cool.
Yeah, it's good.
Demanding. Narcissist. These are mental tactics, by the way. I've got them kind of categorized into different sections. So these are mental tactics. Demanding. The narcissist may demand the victim's attention, time, or energy, encouraging or forcing them into disregarding their own needs and boundaries. So, and then that'll often come with blaming, right? Like, oh, you never given enough time to me. You don't care about me, even though they're giving so much and it's highly imbalanced. They're continuing to demand and then shame them for not giving more, things like this. The gaslighting is almost baked into just about everything they do, because if you think about it, any type of abuse is a inherent betrayal of truth, right? Because morality is objective.
Exactly.
And when you're doing something dishonest, you're going against truth. So you have to be gaslighting by your very nature, because you're going against truth. Hopefully that makes sense. So, emotional tactics. Manipulation. The narcissist may emotionally manipulate the victim by using guilt, shame, or flattery to get them to do what they want. Just wear the mask. Don't you care about people, right? Oh, you must want children to get blown to smithereens because you won't give us your guns, right? What kind of monster are you?
Yeah, right. Wear your mask because you're killing grandma if you don't.
Yeah. Fuck your grandma.
Oh my God.
It's constant. It is constant. Love bombing is a tactic in which the narcissist showers their victim with affection, gifts, and attention in order to quickly build a strong emotional connection and dependency. This can make it difficult for the victim to recognize the narcissist's abusive behavior and create a sense of obligation and loyalty to the narcissist. There's a few examples that come to mind, but you see a lot of this PR stuff with police where they're going around, giving away free TVs and putting it on TikTok or something like that. I've also noticed there's more of these, like, I don't know what you'd call them, like convenience units or something, where they're designated to go helping people when their car is broken down or something like that. It's like, oh, we need to balance the scales, right? If they see us helping people more, that's going to help our image, right?
Yeah.
Any other come to mind when it comes to love bombing?
Oh, that's how the narcissist does it. That's how they gain access. They're chameleons, man. They're able to, basically flip into that, and then once they got control, then they can assert their authority over the victim. It's very vampiric. It's very vampiric in concept.
And then they point to that when you try to say, "Oh, I'm not comfortable with this," they'll be like, "Oh, after everything I've done for you."
Yeah, and it becomes very vampiric because then the host becomes relied upon the narcissist in context.
Mm-hmm. You could look at welfare as a love bombing. Social security and things like that, food stamps, because keeps people dependent on the system.
The government's paying my rent. That's my government. That's part of the deal, man. They have to, with any type of energy exchange, there has to be energy put back into the system so they can pull more out. They just can't take. So there has to be this, they have to use this tactic to put more energy into the system so that they can pull more out. That's how it has to work. They just can't pull.
It's highly lopsided, right?
Exactly.
They'll give an inch and then take a mile.
That's
and
exactly
give
how
another
it works.
inch and then take another mile. And then
it's all about perception.
Complain about the mile. They'll be like, "Well, what about this inch? We just gave you this inch."
Exactly.
Using charm, the narcissist may use their charisma and charm to win over the victim, making it difficult for them to see their abusive behavior. Yeah, and aren't the news anchors just so nice and pretty and handsome and well groomed, and the politicians, they speak with such a pleasing voice, so charismatic.
Absolutely, but yet they're reading the script that they're given.
That's a great point, Sarah.
From the top down,
Yeah, and this goes to show people. This is why I'm doing this episode, because people don't understand how evil operates.
Yep.
They need to understand it doesn't walk around in the broad daylight with its devil horns and fangs and
Mm-mm.
just eating people. It has to give on this air of benevolence and just like, oh, I care so much about you. Here, let me help you. Yeah. And then that's how they get you. Silent treatment, aka freezing out. The narcissist may use the silent treatment to punish their victim for not meeting their demands or expectations. They may withhold communication, affection, or attention until the victim complies with their wishes. So, definitely a very common freeze out technique. If you're
Yeah,
not, and you'll see they'll often switch their tactics, right?
yes,
If
yeah,
if they're trying something and they see that's not working, they'll flip to something else,
yeah,
right? So they'll kind of like be pushy and abusive, and then they'll freeze you out, and then if that's not working, then they might switch back to love bombing and like, hey, why don't I take you out for a nice dinner and this
exactly.
kind of thing. Let's just put all this behind us. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just water under the bridge. Let's start again.
Yep.
Yeah, or the old ghosting technique. That's always a good one.
Right. Right. Because they've made you so dependent on them,
Mm-hmm.
then they pull the rug out, and then
Pull
you're
their
the
energy. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's more emotional manipulation as well, because then you
Big time.
start to panic.
Yep.
And then, of course, physical tactics. So threats and intimidation may use, or even physical violence to control their victim and keep them in line. Well, that's
Yes.
a very obvious thing that the government does. Every
Yes.
single law is threats and intimidation. This can create a sense of fear and dependence on the narcissist. And this is what leads to Stockholm syndrome as well, because then
Absolutely.
it creates that, again, an overcompensation effect of, well, if I just pretend to love, even convince myself that I love these abusers, and have some like semblance of a real relationship, then that will minimize my pain and suffering because we have this like rapport. But anyone with any sense can tell you cannot have a genuine connection or genuine relationship with a narcissist. It doesn't exist. And if you think you have one, you're delusional. And that's the problem. You're buying into that.
Yeah.
It's like having a pet alligator and thinking it loves you.
Yeah.
It does not happen. It's just not how it works.
It's having a pet snake. Oh, the snake bit me. Well, that's what snakes do.
Right.
I mean, they're going to bite you. So it's just the
Yep.
way it is, man. I mean, that's the illusions of Neptune, dude. In context, if you really want to look at it to the actual right brain aspect, when you're dealing with those type of energies, you get into these illusional aspects, especially when, with domestic violence, when you're
Mm.
dealing with the woman who's being beat by the man, and then, then she calls the cops, and then she withdraws that, and then they go through the whole process, and then she comes back to the narcissist again because of her lack of self-worth, self-validation within herself, and then the cycle just repeats. And they're on
Right.
the hamster wheel in context because that relationship is so codependent to that narcissistic aspect.
Mm-hmm.
That is very delusional Neptune energy, in context.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm kind of realizing too, I maybe should have added something in here about incrementalism. The frog in boiling water.
Yes.
That's another way that they work, is like they start very small at first and they test you. They test your boundaries, like the velociraptors test the electrified fence
Yep.
systematically to find out where the weak points are.
Yep.
And then when they know where your weak points are, then they start pushing things further. And by that time, you've already invested a lot. And that's a big thing that gets people,
Yep.
is they're not just going to come out with it right at the beginning. That's why all these victims typically say, like, I don't know how I let this happen. How did I not see it sooner? There's a very good reason why you didn't see it sooner, because they start very small. They're very, very masked and cloaked in the
Yes.
beginning,
Yeah.
and only show you their good side. And that's the side you fall in love with. And then over time, the mask starts slipping and they start extending those tentacles to control you. And it takes, years sometimes to get to that point. And then you wake up one day and you're just like, I'm a fucking slave. How did this happen? And that's why, because they continue to encroach more and more and more to see what you will tolerate. And maybe one day you don't tolerate something, but after a year of abuse and gaslighting and all these techniques we're talking about, you will, because you've been eroded down. That's how this works. It's cumulative. That's what mind control is it's a cumulative state where your sense of self has been eroded down to the point where you will accept outright abuse.
And you deserve it too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine line. I don't fully condone victim blaming.
No, I mean,
Because
like, that's how the person feels inside sometimes.
I see what you're
Say, "Oh,
saying.
I deserve this because I really did something, or I did this, or I
I
did
got
that
out of
to trigger.
line.
I
Right,
triggered it. I triggered
right.
the narcissist.
Okay, I see
That
what
type
you're
of thing.
saying.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because you see this all the time with like
yeah.
police brutality videos,
Yes,
and
same
people are
thing.
just like,
Exactly.
"Well, if they just complied and got back in their car, like they were told, none of this would have happened and stuff." It's like you see the brainwashing for
Yep,
sure.
absolutely.
But regarding what I was saying, though, I do like there is a certain degree of blame, like the people of America, the people of Australia, UK, where things are particularly tyrannical. It doesn't condone it. I'm not condoning or excusing abusive behavior, but I will say we have exactly the government that we deserve.
Yep.
Because if we would start saying no and not
Yes.
tolerating the bullshit, they would not do it. Because you see, when people actually exercise their power and say no, look how fast they recoil, and they will dial it way back. They'll be like, okay, we overstepped. Sorry about
Hmm.
that. We'll
Yep.
try again in another 10 years. Wink, wink. After we've
Yes.
abused you and traumatized you further. But
Yes.
for now, they know who's actually in charge. So that's what I wanted to say is like it's a slippery slope with victim blaming.
Yes.
I don't say, oh, everything that happens to you is fully your fault, but you're not completely absolved of any, because you co-created that relationship. You allowed
Absolutely.
things to get to that point. And
Yes.
that's important as well,
Yeah.
because the only way to get out of it is to take that accountability.
Yeah. I mean, if
That's
you're,
it's an important part of the process.
it's called consent. If you give consent to what's happening, and you aren't actually standing in the opposition of that, in context, then yeah, you are actually consenting to what's happening.
Right.
You're giving that consent. We are giving that consent to our government as a nation to do what they're doing, you know and when we step into that place as an individual, and then that you are no longer consenting to this is what truth is all about, standing in the truth,
Mhm.
which is really the opposition to what you're talking about here in context. That's where you draw the boundary, that's where you draw the line. you know and that is the true Saturnian energy in context, where
Yeah.
you draw that boundary. That is not the inverted bullshit. What we're talking about here, we're talking about the truth, and how Saturn actually holds that boundary in context to what cosmic principle actually is.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
you know,
There's no getting around that.
there is no getting around it.
This is interesting what Josh here says. The trifecta is like a victim cycle: abuser, victim, hero, because often the hero gets so comfortable in that power, they go from powerlessness to empowered to like too far, right? Think like overstepping their power, and then they become the abuser again. So that's really interesting.
Yeah,
I've never looked at it that way.
it's quite a loop.
And so finally, we have financial control. The narcissist may control the victim's
Yeah,
finances,
right.
taxation, either restricting their access to money or by forcing them to provide financial support. This can create a sense of dependency and make it difficult for the victim to leave the relationship. So this is, this is taxation completely, providing,
Exactly.
forcing them to provide financial support, restricting their access to money. Now they're working on rolling out these central bank digital currencies where they'll
Yep.
have even more financial control over how much money where you can spend it. Oh, you said a bad thing on Facebook. Let's do, you're restricted off access from your money. You have an expiration date. You have to spend it by this certain time.
Yep.
All kinds of weird crap like that.
You had 2 pizzas this week. We're going to deny your third one.
Right?
You
It's
know,
yeah.
I mean, you know,
You're on cricket pace till the end of the month.
you know what I mean? I mean, it's just
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Yep. You're allowed one steak per month.
yes,
That's your allotment, and then it's cricket paste for you,
that's right.
doing your part for the planet. So
We have to
I
keep
think
our carbon footprint down, man. Don't you know?
that's right. So again, these slides came from my Trivium hacking presentation. That was just a little slice. Like I said, the whole thing is almost 4 hours long, and I go into the most detail I could possibly do when it comes to basically, I wanted it to be a definitive blueprint for mind control. What is it, how it works, and how to get out of it. So this is just one piece from the how it works, the tactics aspect, and I go into much greater detail. So very, very proud of how that turned out. The reception and feedback has been tremendous. People are just blown away by it, which very, very honored, and I appreciate that. People loving the cricket paste, man. Come on,
It's classic. It's
sriracha.
classic, man.
Tastes like chicken, baby.
Oh my
Put it in your
god.
smoothies. Oh man, that's rough. So that is all the slides I have. I'm dropping the link in the comments right now. So if you have a question, if you want to jump in and add something, be a part of the conversation, you are invited. So, kind of wrap this up, at least the topical aspect. But, again, knowledge is power. If if you're not aware of things being done to you, whether it's from someone in your family, a friend, or the system, right? It really doesn't matter who it's coming from. At the end of the day, it boils down to people. And you need to step into your self-worth, recognize when abuse is taking place, and not tolerate it. But again, it's so subversive that it gets away with doing these things to you without you really realizing them, or they're somehow justified, right, in the name of public safety or something like that, where, oh, well, I'm willing to compromise my own sovereignty and my own boundaries for this, for this reason. It's an exception to the cause, that kind of thing. So again, I wanted to put this out to just kind of empower people to understand how this works and be able to hopefully recognize it now that you've seen these tools, and being able to, once you recognize, then you're empowered to say, oh, what am I going to do about this? Like, is this something that I'm down with? And do I need to have stronger boundaries here, potentially, even if you've been accepting something for years? I wanted this to be maybe a wake-up call for a situation you might have been in for a long time, and now you're seeing, and you're all the dots are connecting, and you're like, oh my god, like, I never saw it before, So let me know in the comments, hopefully you got value out of this. And again, that link is in the chat pinned. So if you wanted to jump in, you're more than welcome to. You can
Yeah.
be on camera, or you could just have your camera off if you're more comfortable audio only. That's totally fine. But Rodney, do you have anything you wanted to share?
Well,
Afterthoughts?
taking it back to the beginning of the segment here, this does have a lot to do with the energies that are present right now on the wheel, to the Cancer Sun and the Capricorn full moon. So, we have that 10-4 axis going on, and everything that you were, presenting there. I was looking at it and I was going, damn, that's very inverted Saturnian energy. Damn, that's moon energy. When the narcissist and, takes the gaslighting, and then the Cancer aspect is the crab pulling back in the shell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Closing the curtains, closing everything off, and becoming the victim in context to the inverted Cancer energy. So all that is all ties into that 10-4 axis, all ties into that, the hemispheres, and when we're looking at astrology, most of the axis points are about balancing the hemispheres of your mind. I mean, I think that most people, when they get, become that victim, it's because their internal dialogue's jammed.
Mm-hmm.
Within themselves, they are the victim within themselves. So they pull that vibrational correspondence in, because they are the victim in their internal dialogue of their mind.
Right.
And so they're not even drawing the boundaries within themselves. So how can they draw the boundaries outside of themselves to Capricorn? See, because they don't know their moon's jammed, and they don't know how to navigate their moon energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so when your moon's jammed like that too, because the gate of Cancer is basically anchored by the moon itself. So when you're not having a correct navigation context to alignment, then you're pulled, you don't have any boundaries within yourself, and so take it to relationships, which is Venus, second gate, seventh gate, your own self-worth, self-love, and then take it to relationships itself to the seventh gate. This is how it all works to the relationship aspect with Venus, because then the Venus becomes inverted and dark Luciferian aspects to the feminine aspect within the construct. So
Right.
You're dealing with all, that's why I love astrology, because it does break down so much of this in context to the hemispheres of our mind. And then, actually realizing the actual, when take to the Hermetica in context, when you're dealing with cosmic principle, so it's so intertwined and interweaved, and, you're talking about this banking thing. And I was thinking about it. I think it was a couple nights ago. They threw out that whole Titanic ocean, the submarine thing, going down to see the Titanic again, right? All that shit, right? And there was just meme after meme, and everybody put their consciousness on it. Well, if you go back to that timeline, what was actually happening there? They were actually imprinting onto people consciousness. They were creating what the Federal Reserve, man, in context. See, the banking system. And so that's JP Morgan and all that. That's what all was going on during that time that the Titanic was, supposedly, quote unquote, sunk, right? So what are they doing? They're reweaving that consciousness from that timeline, trying to pull it back in context to this next transition that we're going into the digital dollar. You see how they tried to correlate those energies. I mean, we're dealing with high-level dark sorcery here, man. In context to these psyops and what's going on here, people just don't know. And so when you're looking at this aspect, you're just going, I'm thinking to myself, holy shit, man. It's like I can see it, but most of the people, they don't realize what's being set up here. In context to this. So they're trying, like you said, the digital dollar, they're trying to pull all this into a, digital dollar aspect to track everything, when the astrology is just showing you the opposite. It's decentralizing currency.
Right.
It's the actual opposite that's taking place in context to what astrology is showing right now.
1 second. I noticed Angela jumped in here for just a second and then she left. I'm not sure if you meant to leave, but you're welcome to jump in here. I was just letting Rodney finish before I brought you in. So if you want to jump back in here, go ahead, Rodney. What were you saying?
Oh no, I was just saying that this is how they jam the consciousness.
Yeah.
And so when you're working on your own individual level, this is why your own individual path work is so important. And it's so important to have mentors who understand this, that are teaching you, how to navigate your moon and your sun and your energies in context to this. And so everybody, as far as I'm concerned, you need to be having people that understand this level of dark sorcery that's going on, because if you don't have the awareness, you need people who do in your circle that you can go to, that you can hit up or whatever, and you can say, hey man, I got this going on, I'm not sure what's happening, I'm not seeing it, and
Right.
so they help you through this process, and that's why we need friends and mentors and people around us, who are that we can connect with, and be able then to rise above it as men,
Right.
and women, and not be, again, a victim to the system itself and to the parasite, because we're really dealing, Logan, we're really dealing with high level parasitical consciousness on this planet. That is really the parasite. It's the mind virus. Is what we're really dealing with here.
Hmm.
And it's been here for aeons. It's been here a long, long time.
Angela, you're saying that there's some glitches. I'm not sure which browser you were using, but I recommend if you use a Chromium-based browser, so Chrome or Brave or something like that. Firefox doesn't seem to work very well with this program. So if you could switch to the Chrome browser, that might fix it. But yeah, that's interesting, because what does a narcissist do? They isolate you. They want to
Yes.
cut you off
Yep.
from your friends, from anyone
That's
who
right.
can give you that feedback and say, "Oh, that happened? Like, dude, no, that's not cool. That's fucked up."
Exactly.
They need to insulate themselves from that and keep you to where you're the only source of truth that they hear, and they can't hear any other conflict. I mean, the same
And
thing with the censorship. It's the
absolutely, man.
same exact thing. They want to silence any type of perspective or sentiment that goes against their power.
Yeah. And that is also input into the Abrahamic construct. If you look at religion itself,
Oh yeah,
they don't want you to look outside of the quote unquote book,
the worldly religions, right?
exactly. So,
The fact that they made the word worldly a dirty word.
I know,
I
right?
always thought that was weird, even when I was a kid and I was raised in in this cult. Uh, why is the worldly is seen as so bad? That's so indicative of keeping you in a bubble, right? The
Yeah.
whole world is out there, but you don't need to worry with any of that because it's all sinful. It's there to distract you.
Yes.
You only need to stay inside the bubble and read your Bible and be around church going, God fearing people, and that's
Right.
it.
Right.
That's a great way to keep your cult intact.
And I've even heard, like, oh, if you take the pastor's advice and it's wrong, it's on him, because you were just following his cue, in context, even though it affected your life in a very negative way. But that's on him. I've heard all this bullshit for years. That go on. You know who has a great dissertation is Vampires of Consciousness.
Mm.
Have you ever heard that?
Mm-mm.
It's man, it's a very powerful segment. Man, I'm losing the guy's name right now for some reason because I haven't heard it for a while. If anybody knows the guy's name, I cannot remember. It's Doctor. God, I can't think of his name right now. Should be on the tip of my tongue. I've listened to all of them.
Mm.
He has a book called The Wounded Womb as well. I'm going to look it up because it's important that people would get Dr. Valentine. That's it. Yes. Phil Valentine. That's right.
Nice.
I couldn't remember his name. But very powerful dissertation on vampires of consciousness. Powerful segment.
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
Angela's saying she has camera and audio open but says denied. Have you tried your permissions? Maybe if you refresh, it should give you the option to allow access to those devices. So I'm not sure where the issue is there. Sorry. I hope you're able to get that to work. I'd love to hear a question from you.
So yeah,
anyway.
Good presentation, man. I mean, that is all manifesting, that parasite, that mind virus, manifesting down to the individual level from the top.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all the way down, you know. And
Mhm.
until you take responsibility for your own life and, you know, get your shit together, start really moving in the direction of self-empowerment, you're going to be a victim, man. And the victim mentality, the savior mentality, all those programs that are running are all layered up, man, you know. And this is what this energy is all about right now, man. It's all about looking at your own life, looking at where you are at as an individual, and then taking responsibility for where you're still dealing with this, you know, this parasite and this mind virus, and doing something about it.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, any takers on the call? Otherwise, we'll probably wrap this up. I do hope everyone's got some value out of this episode today. If so, please, the easiest thing you can do to help out is click the like button. It takes 1 second. Really does help the video get more views and help the channel with basically organic reach. Subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you click the bell because I've heard from several people that they're not getting, they're not seeing my videos, and they're basically shadow banning my content. So thank you, Sarah. Appreciate everyone being here. I love to see all my peeps. Got Hexproof, Rika, Sethicus in the house. Misty, from Eric. See if I'm missing anyone. I apologize. Jason, Stephanie stopped by. Yeah, it really does me a lot of good to see you guys showing up every week. It means a lot to me. I definitely plan on really trying to ramp things up this year, and possibly running some ads or something like that. Oh, she's on a phone. That's possibly, yeah. I mean, it can work on your phone too, but that's something I'm not as familiar with. Sorry you couldn't get it to work though, Angela. Maybe next time or something. But yeah, again, means a lot. You guys showing up and supporting me. Do share this with people. Let people know, what the Wizard Factory is about. I've got a lot of content here. Been here for years, and don't plan on stopping anytime soon. So, like I said, going to be taking a break. So this will be the last episode for, I don't know, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 4 weeks. I mean, just be patient. Uh, give me some wiggle room there. I just have no idea what to expect as I'm getting everything kind of acclimated to the road. Hopefully I don't have any issues with my studio setup inside the truck with, power or anything like that. I just don't know how it's all going to go. So I'm going to do my best, and looking forward to continuing the show from the road, and getting back to business as usual. But again, definitely check out my presentation. I'll put a link in the comments below, and not the comments, the description box. So I guess I'll wrap it up there today. Thanks, Rodney, for
Yeah, man.
helping out today. It's been a really
Anytime.
good discussion, very important topic. And I'll miss doing these shows for a little bit, but I will definitely be back. And appreciate everyone. Check out thewizardfactory.com to find out more. And yeah, have a great week, everyone. And we'll see you soon for another episode. And stay tuned for more podcast episodes coming, some interviews that I'll be dropping, and the short videos that I've been doing. So I'll keep that part coming. It's just the live show that'll be on pause for a little bit. So with that, everyone, thank you so much for being here. I love you guys, and we'll see you soon. But until next time, be empowered, inspired, and encouraged.
All right.